Hello and welcome again to our video conversation series in which I ask probing questions of media literacy to see how we can define media literacy of the future and kind of take stock of where we are in the whole journey of media literacy. And joining me today is Alexandre Le Voci Sayad from Sao Paulo, Brazil. And he's going to help us answer the question, what are the contours, boundaries, and possibilities of critical thinking? You know, critical thinking is something that is critical to media literacy, and that's how the proponents of media literacy have defined it. Alex, as we all know him, he's my colleague on the board of the International Council for Media Literacy. He's the director of ZeitGeist, a consultancy in education, culture, and media. He's the international co-chairman of UNESCO MIL Alliance. It's based in Paris. He hosts media-related shows on Canal Futura TV channel and an FM channel called Band News. He's worked as a journalist covering the field of education itself. So, you know, he's covered in education as well as media, as you can see. He has helped found three NGOs and 2 companies, including the UNICEF-supported CEP network. And he's on advisory boards as well. He has a very interesting master's degree in AI and ethics. That would be so interesting to talk about at another point of time. But Alex, welcome. Good to see you again.
Thank you, Sashi. It's an honor to talk to you.
Great. You want to start us off right away with answering that question. What are the contours, boundaries, and possibilities of critical thinking? That sounds like a simple enough question, doesn't it, Alex?
Yes, at first sight, it's really simple, and I think it's really basic for media and information literacy since its first concepts. But researching the concept of critical thinking, we can go back even to Socrates and the pre-Socratic philosophers from Greece, antique Greece. But if you come closer to this century, like the last century, we're going to find the Frankfurt School that works a lot in Germany with the concept of critical thinking. But there's one thing that I would like to mention about it. Of course, we need to think critically about the media to develop good skills or high skills on media and information literacy. It's a kind of common sense. But at the same time, critical thinking comes from the mass media concept, the media that we have nowadays, but it's getting a little bit old-fashioned for most of the countries, like television and radio. I mean, when I talk about mass media, I talk about media that release one message to the whole crowd with no algorithms, and they produce information based on a company. Generally, is not a network, or this is not the prosumers that we got used to in social media era, on the algorithm era.
Right. The producers and consumers.
The producers and consumers. So when you think about critical thinking, you are thinking about a human being with a mediation communicating with a group of human beings too. And this is what comes from the concept. The problem is, in this AI and algorithm era, we have most of the times a human being, that's all of us. A mediation can be the screen of the the social networks, but at the other side of the fence of the wall, there is an algorithm or an AI system. So you are not talking, you are mediating by a digital media, but you are not talking to another human being. Right. You are talking to a learning machine system generally. That's what happened.
Right.
And so the concept of critical thinking in this sense, which the digital media that we are involved nowadays, are being tensioned by some thinkers and researchers that are called the new materialists, where I can underline the recently dead Bruno Latour, the French philosopher Bruno Latour, who said that to see critically the communication nowadays, we need to close up the network and consider the bounds, the connection, the strength of the connection, and the agenda of the human, but also the objects.
Right.
And when we thought about critical thinking in the past, we didn't think about objects.
Right.
We think about a human being on the other side. So this is quite new. And some philosophers and some researchers are trying to ban this concept of critical thinking, and thinking about the media is, the message is still the medium again. So look at the medium, which is the network, and see the connections, see the agenda of both elements that are connected, communicating, the other connections, the strength of the other connection, and analyze this network to understand what's happening there critically. It's a little bit complex for us, but in bottom line to me is that we need to pay attention that mass media has a mindset and a way of working, and algorithms and AI that's really growing up fast day by day. It's another logic and another mindset. We need to pay attention when we teach, when we develop programs on MIL, when we consider algorithms or no algorithms within these communication systems.
Great. So thereby, it looks like we need to draw a difference between medium and media as of today, because the media are no longer just a medium, is basically what you're saying. They don't just mediate, they also intervene in the whole message to meaning systems. I'm wondering how then would a media prosumer see the system, because they're already in the system, because they're a prosumer, and presuming that a majority of people are already prosuming. I don't like to use the word use the media because it's too much agency, and I don't want to use the word consume because it's too little agency. So let's just say prosume, and because they're already prosuming, one would assume that they're already a little media literate, no?
Yes, I think it is, but I think there is one, you talk about agency, which is a good word that I forgot to mention. And what Bruno Latour and other materialists say is that the object has an agency too.
Yes.
It has history. Of course, it was created by a human. And so it can bring, it can contain all the characteristics, even the prejudice of that human. We know about this, about AI algorithms.
Yes.
But in a way, I agree with you. What I think is the next step is that everyone needs to understand basically, really basic. I'm not talking about coding or deep knowledge in AI, nothing like this. Even I don't have this, but how an AI system work, how a machine learning system work, or a deep learning system work, because it brings a lot of different information for the prosumers. They are dealing with an algorithm and not only a screen with another human being at the other side. So I think we need to consider some characteristics, some information about algorithms and AI, really based on human science in the first level, for all kids and all students. They are working, they are studying in the basic education around the world. So this is quite new, because sometimes I think most of the people are still understanding the literacy as radio, magazine, only digital. The difference is digital, but And even the first social media, the algorithms were not so sophisticated,
Right.
and we didn't have data enough
Sure.
to produce a learning machine
Sure.
so accurate that we have nowadays. Even to understand fake news, we need
Right.
to understand how an algorithm works.
Do you think that humans then really need to understand algorithms, given the fact that the fact check mechanisms in our society have become so strong that it seems that technology will allow us not just to debunk fake news, but what they're calling pre-bunk, which is, just prevent fake news. So in that sense, why should we be media literate at all? The machine's doing everything for us.
Yeah, I do believe in, and it's not a personal impression, it's research-based impressions that the countries that most work effectively against fake news, the system works as a constellation of actions, not only one big shot or one silver bullet, as we used to say. So generally, we have a good fact check system working, good legislation on freedom of speech and press freedom, and also regulating how fake news will circulate in elections time.
Sure.
But mainly two things. First one is media literacy in the school curriculum and lifelong learning processes, which is very important, that we understand since the kindergarten that we are that in media, in digital and analogic media. And the last thing, and it's very important, is that society has nurtured a trust within the system, within this whole system. I mentioned a constellation as a metaphor, but I think it's a constellation of actions that protects democracy, the truth, and the society against this post-truth era or this disinformation era that we are facing right now, most places around the world.
And therefore, doesn't trust conflict with critical thinking?
I don't think so in this sense, because for any skill you will develop, you have to have a basic step. It's this basic step is the concept of moral and basic trusts. When you believe in a system itself, should mean that you believe in democracy. And you believe that you need to raise tools and instruments to guarantee and to balance democracy within a country. And then you start to believe with critical thinking on that system. There is no human being that has no beliefs at all. When I think about the first step is that you have basic moral concepts that you should believe, because at least, Shashi, I think we are facing a crisis of the Illuminism, the European way of thinking, and the democracy itself. And if you believe that democracy is good for itself, it doesn't belong to other consequence. We need to trust a system that holds it in front of us.
So therefore, in an enlightened society, you're saying in a modern kind of society where institutional trust is one of the pillars, it is still important to have critical thinking, because critical thinking is another pillar of modern societies.
Exactly.
Well, excuse me. We'll have to end on that note, Alex. I didn't realize the time flying, but that's it, I guess. Very regrettably, we'll have to end this show. But thank you very much for being here and for your lovely insights.
No, thank you a lot. I hope I was not so confused in my explanation, but I like to tension a little bit this just for us to go ahead
Sure.
with more ideas for all of our community. Go ahead with more ideas.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.